Hey everybody, welcome to this series on Logic Pro where we start at the very beginning. We're going to begin with installation, system requirements, and we're going to do a number of videos that will take you up to become a competent user of Logic. Now the goal all along the way is to make sure that we're teaching you the very basics if you're brand new, but that will add some content for those of you who are more advanced and have been using it for a while, that you'll still find some things, hopefully in these videos, that you'll find useful. As we start at the very beginning, this may be one of those videos where you're like, well, I already have Logic installed and it seems to be working great. Perfect. Go on to video number 2 when it's released, and we'll start doing some more practical hands-on things at that time. All along the way, if you're interested in getting more content that's paired with this, as a membership program for this channel, you can get transcripts of the videos that are built in summary format, so you can get bullet points of everything we talked about. If you're more of a want to print something out or have something in a written format rather than watch the video, join our membership groups and you'll get that. You'll get any projects that we're doing that you can download, and you'll get access to other live stream companionship streams that we do with some of these videos. So perhaps maybe you're like, that's great, but I have some questions. Well, if you're a member, you'll be able to join these live streams and ask questions and have that interaction. And it'll be just for the members, and so there won't be a lot of other people there who can steal the spotlight. Today, what we're talking about, though, is the very beginning installation and setup of Logic. That's our goal. We're going to talk about how you know which version you can get, if you can have access to older versions. We're going to talk about computer specs and all of that fun stuff. And so let's dive right into this. I have opened the App Store already. You have to download this through the App Store. You'd be surprised at how many times that question comes up if someone can do this without it. Go into the App Store. You'll have to have an Apple ID. And if you haven't purchased it, you'll have to load in your credit or debit card information, including having it a security test to make sure that they know who you are. Once you do that, we can go in and load up Logic. Now, I've already installed Logic, but there's a few different things on here that we want to talk about to make sure that you know exactly what we have. First of all, you can see the version history, all of the updates that have happened here. You can see which one that you're able to install. Not every computer can install every version of Logic. And we'll come down here to the bottom, or closer to the bottom, and show you that, where it says compatibility. It says works on this Mac Studio. Great. It says it requires macOS 14.4 to run the latest version. If you don't have macOS 14.4, then you won't be able to run this. Now, I also have on the screen open up about this Mac. You can get that from the Apple icon in the menu, and at the very top one it says about this Mac. That shows you this window, and this will show you which Mac OS you currently have. I have Sequoia 15.5, and so I can run the latest version. If you have a Mac that doesn't allow you to install 15.5, and there are Macs now that are in that era that people are still using but maybe can't load this newest version, or you don't have a Silicon Mac, and so that'll be some of the features in Logic as well, then you have a few options. One of those is if the App Store will allow you to download a previous version. I've seen this a number of times. I haven't had to use it. But I've seen this where people say, it says you can't download the current one. Would you like to download the latest one that's compatible? And then you can go with that option. Okay, so that's one of the options. And it will, in many cases, if you've bought or purchased Logic, it will let you get the most recent one that's compatible with your system. Or you can upgrade your computer. There's a lot of really great deals on Apple computers, a lot of M4 chips in MacBooks and MacBook Airs and MacBook, or not MacBook, but Mac Minis or Mac Mini Pros or Mac Studio. There's a lot of options, and you can probably find one that's a really good fit for use of Logic. That's not terribly expensive. Apple's always been known to have computers that are more expensive for the power you get. In this case, we're not doing a comparison. We can't compare Logic on a Mac versus a Windows or other type of computer because Logic only works on Mac. And if you want to use Logic, then you have to have a Mac. There always have been some exceptions with things like Hackintosh, but I don't keep up with those trends. I don't keep up with the options of what's available for silicon type situations, but I know that in the past there are some shady roads you can go down that produce results for some people. And if you want to find those, just Google it and find out what your options are in that case. Here's what we know for sure. When you install this, you need to have at least 6 gigabytes of space. I know the size of this app says 1.33. There are 3 downloads that happen when you get Logic. There's the initial one, which is this 1.33 gigabytes. It ends up being a little bigger once it's installed. And then there's an essential sound installation that happens when you first open Logic. And then there's all of the additional content. Now, they say on the website that it can be up to like 70 something gigabytes, but I've found that when everything's installed and the original application and all of the presets and everything and the plugins, it ends up being closer to 100 gigabytes. So if you want everything installed, you have to have that amount of space. Plus, if you have a computer that maybe has less than 64 gigabytes of RAM, this computer that I'm on has 64, and that has been really a good amount. But even with that amount, I have to keep a large portion of my main hard drive empty because the silicon infrastructure likes using your main disk for additional resources when the operating system is chugging along. So if you get the smallest hard drive possible and expect everything to work great, you might be surprised, especially if you have a low amount of RAM. 16. I think 16 is now kind of the default for most of the computers. That's pushing it for small. I have a MacBook M4 and it has 16 gigs of RAM and it seems to be okay, but I keep a large section of the hard drive empty so that it always can use that for virtual style memory. Okay. So you need all the space. If you don't have the space, there are a few options. One, don't install all of the content. Only install the things that you need, or you can move the sound library to an external drive. Let me show you the technique for this because if you don't have enough space for all of it, you can't install it and then move it. That doesn't make any sense. So there is a way to do this. Let me load up Logic. You're going to see it's not quite like a brand new one, but it is very close because I uninstalled some of the essentials. And this is what would pop up the very first time you start Logic. It says, "Welcome to Logic Pro. Please choose how you would like to use the app." I'm going to not do that for a second. I am going to type in my password so that I can install the content it wants to, and that will go away. But the very first time, I'm sure I did complete mode and not simplified mode. If you're coming from GarageBand, perhaps simplified mode makes sense, but I feel like this isn't like learning how to swim where you need to do very specific things. You're most likely a grown-up who can handle the deep end of the pool. Just dive in, right? Okay, so we're going to open a new project, and we'll just leave everything as it is. Okay, great, perfect. Now, over on the left side, you'll see these arrows with a circle around them. That means there's content there which is not installed, and you could install it directly from here. If I go to this, I can click on that little arrow, and you'll see at it disappeared. It goes very fast. I'll show you that in a second. But it installed that thing, so you can install things one at a time as needed. That's one option. Up inside of our Logic menu, under Sound Library, we have a few different options here. One is download all available sounds. You can just do that without opening up the manager. You can reinstall the sound library. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it was on an external drive and that drive crashed and you don't have it anymore, so you can actually reinstall it. Or you can open the sound library manager. The last option is the one we're going to talk about in a second, but let's open up the Sound Library Manager first. Now these are just for the Logic sounds. This isn't a manager for third-party things. This is just for the sound library of Logic itself. And so we can say select all uninstalled, and you'll see all of these arrows pop up. And great, I'm going to actually install these. It says I need about 17 gigabytes. I deleted part of what's considered the GarageBand library, which Logic uses. And so if you go through your file system, you may see a GarageBand folder. You can't delete it even if you're not using GarageBand because Logic uses some of those files. Now up in the top center, there's a little blue line underneath the main transport window. I'm going to click on it. It'll show you the progress of downloading. And when it's done, you can pause it if you need to, or you could stop it. I'm going to let it go. And then I'll show you the relocate option. Now here's the thing about the relocate option. If you install Logic after the initial download, you go into the second download with those essential sounds, which happen when you first open up Logic. Then you've gotten, I don't know, I can't remember exactly the number of gigabytes that have now been downloaded, but it's a decent chunk. At that point, you can relocate all of the optional things that can be relocated. It's not all of the things that get downloaded. It's typically the instruments and the Apple loops and things like that. But there are some presets and things that don't go with it. So not everything gets moved. Just a chunk of things can ever be moved. But if you move it after the essential download, then everything after that will be installed at that new location. So you can do the small essential download first, and then download all of the rest of it, and it'll go to that particular place on the external drive. You want a fast drive, as fast as a drive as you can get. And don't just buy like any old SSD on the internet and then use whatever cable you have laying around. Cables matter. Some cables are designed just to be charging cables. Some of them are low bandwidth cables, and so you want a very fast cable. And that stuff is changing so frequently that I'm not going to tell you a specific one. Just make sure you're looking at the specs at how much data can go across that cable and pick one of the ones that has the higher amount. Easy. And then what I always am doing, I'm going to load up an app here. Let's see. There's a free app on the App Store. There are other ones, I'm sure, and other ways you can do this, but I use the Blackmagic Disk Speed Test. And this app is a free app you can get on the App Store. Blackmagic Design Disk Speed Test. Look that up. You click on this little thing. You say, I want to select a target disk drive right there. We'll do it on the desktop. Perfect. And then I'm going to say start. And it's going to do a bunch of writing to that, and it'll do some reading from it, and it'll say how fast your drive is in comparison to, in this case, video files. That's just, I like to see how much data goes back and forth, and you can click again to stop it. It'll just keep going. You can see that we have 6,099 MB per second write, and we have 5,072 MB seconds per second read. That's fast. For audio, that's very fast. That's good for installing a library. It's one of the reasons why when you buy a Mac, if you can get 2 terabyte drive or more, then you should, because you can install some of your audio libraries on your main drive without filling up the drive. That's what I've been doing. But this is very fast. It means 8K video, you can read and write in all those formats. With ProRes 422, you can do 12K read and write. That's a very fast drive. Now, let me show you one of my other drives. And I think I've got a couple here that we can do. Let's do the Glyph first. And you'll see a much slower read and write. And this isn't bad. I mean, we're still looking at 400 MB per second. And then read is probably going to be faster. No, about the same. Okay. So that's a function of the cable and the drive. That's as fast as they go. There are some, I've had like good SSD drives that were lower than this, and it turned out to be a cable was bad. And so you want to make sure you have the right cable in addition to everything else. And then I got a big drive. This is a backup drive, not one of my main writing drives. And you can see it's under 100 instead of 300. I'm not even going to do the whole test. That's a backup drive. That's a drive used for archiving, not reading and writing a lot of things to it. I don't have any of my fast SSD drives currently connected. They're connected to my laptop someplace else. But you see the range there, like 60 to 400 to 6,000. And so you want to make sure you're putting the right stuff in the right places. And this is a good indicator. If you have a very fast drive, but you're getting 60 megabytes per second, that means your cable potentially is the wrong cable for the job. Okay, cool. Or your hard drive's too full. That could also sometimes be an indicator. Once we have that, let's go into our sound library for a moment and relocate it, or just say we want to for a minute. You can see the glyph only has 21 gigabytes available, so it is fuller. I could do it on the big drive with 1.54 terabytes available, but it's too slow. And so I'm not going to relocate it, but this is the process. And it says it's going to move 79.63 gigabytes to the new location. Okay, I'm going to leave it right where it is on my main system drive because, as you can see, my main system drive has almost 250 gigabytes available, and I like to keep it around 250 gigabytes just so that there's plenty of room for the system and I'm not filling things up. When the main drive fills up, everything goes wonky. The operating system no longer functions as expected, and it becomes very problematic. So I've learned in the past, keep chunks of space available on that drive. Okay, so if you're running into issues, what are your steps? One, it could be you have an old computer. That is one of the things that is a number one roadblock for Logic users. It could be you have an old computer that just is having issues. You could reformat the entire thing. You could do a clean install. That has some other challenges as well, but it is one of the things that could help optimize it. You could just clean everything off and lock down the computer so you're not putting a bunch of other things on it and trying to have it multitask too much. That's another thing. Triple check that you're not, in fact, using Logic at the same time as 15 Safari browser windows. And, it's like you want to be smart with what's happening. And so there are some things with that you should, be careful of. Almost everything that I have on my computer that's in use at the same time would be audio or media related. I do have Adobe Cloud, which takes up a little bit of stuff in the background. I have the Roland Cloud and some other utilities that are open. But for the most part, I try to just run Logic by itself, and that is really efficient. If you are installing all this for the very first time, then you might need to give it a day or two before you get full performance. When you install the many thousands and thousands of files that come in the libraries into Logic, the operating system is going to be working on indexing those for a period of time. If it's a brand new computer anyway, it's already doing that for everything else. And so I've found that the very first couple days of a new computer or a new Logic install, the system tends to be a little bit muddier than after that is all completed. So just leave the computer on for a couple days and let it kind of go through all of its process. The next thing that's part of the installation process would be to install and load in all of the third-party instruments and effects that you're going to be using. Now, in Logic, we do have a window for this as well, which we can use to kind of manage this. This would be the plugin manager under the Logic Pro menu under Settings. And with this, I have a number of things installed here. And they're by categories. You can actually do a little bit of management of these. They've added some functionality over the years, but you can see I have a decent list of third-party things, but it's not an endless list. And part of that is because I prefer to use as many of the stock things in Logic as I can and only expand out when I have a need for something, or I'm using something to see if I could add it in, or doing a product review or something else like that. Now, let's click on the use. You can go through these and see, do I have any that are not being used right now? Doesn't look like it. Every once in a while, there's some compatibility issues. I think I have those pretty much nailed down right this moment. But over the years, I certainly have had things which are not compatible. And they will show you here, and you can try to use them anyway. But for the most part, you'll need to work with a third-party company to troubleshoot it. Apple doesn't promise any certain compatibility. It can change its audio unit specification at any time, and all the companies are expected to update if they want to work with it. And so we've had some bumps, and I think the third-party things, they're typically what add the most bumps into anybody's project. If you load in a bunch of third-party things, and I would say if you load especially things that are cracked or not legitimate, you're asking for trouble. But some things, even if they are legitimate, maybe they've been discontinued and you're hoping to still use them, or it's a previous version and you don't want to update them. Well, those are other times that you're going to run into some issues. And so what you'll do is you can continuously do resets and rescans, or you can just turn them all off and see which one will load. You can do it like one at a time. So you'll do one plugin, and if it all works, then great, that's not the issue. If you load a second one, it all works, great, that's not the issue. Maybe you'll get to a plugin at some point, and then all of a sudden it crashes. Well, then you may have found out that that one is what's causing Logic to crash. Now, there's more to it, and actually Logic over the years has designed certain things to help compartmentalize the crashes by third-party effects, and it's actually caused issues in other places. But for the most part, once you get this dialed in and get the right plugins, you're going to be able to just use Logic with a minimal number of crashes caused by third-party things. Just don't try to use something that doesn't work. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, great. Let's close this. So, third-party effects, all of the Logic library, learning how to relocate it if you need to, the 3-part installation process of installing Logic, using previous versions or upgrading your Mac. The last couple things I'll talk about in this initial video would be the reason for getting a Silicon Mac. Now, if you're still using an Intel chipped Mac, before the M series came out, you may think, well, this is a really powerful Mac. I spent a lot of money on it. I'm excited to use Logic with it. The truth is, even now, some things don't work in Logic with those types of chips. There are some of the things with head tracking. There are some of the effects and plugins that won't work. A lot of the Atmos features are difficult. And so if you want all of the features, you have to have the Silicon and not one of the older Macs, even if the older Mac theoretically would be powerful enough. If it's very powerful, it just won't work. The last thing I'll talk about would be one of the more controversial things with Logic, and that is ARA. It's a type of protocol with plugins that allow the plugin and the software to communicate with each other in really nice ways, in tight integrated ways. And it doesn't work in certain modes of Logic. So for instance, I'm opening up my Logic info from the Finder. So this is my application folder, found Logic, Command-I to open up the information thing. And you can see there's a check mark here that says open using Rosetta. Rosetta, this is a universal app, which means it works natively on the Silicon processors, but it has to use Rosetta to run it in the way that it would work on an Intel chip. Whew. So ARA works supposedly in Rosetta. I don't use Rosetta anymore, and it doesn't work in the non-Rosetta universal mode. If you want to use those things, then you got to turn off or turn on Rosetta, and then you can have access to some of the ARA plugins. We're talking about things like Melodyne and Vocaline, and there's a Dreamtronics Synthesizer V, and there's some others too. But those use ARA, and currently the non-Rosetta version just doesn't work with those. And so you're stuck either without them or putting this back into a mode that is less optimized for the silicon chips. Is there hope for this ever being fixed? Maybe by the time you're watching this in the future, maybe it will be. I don't know. But currently it's not, and it hasn't worked for a number of years. And so that's the question. Do you need those things so badly that you'll run Logic in a less efficient way or use a different workstation? Those are choices you'll have to make. Now, Melodyne is one that I don't need to use. I use the flex time and pitch in Logic and have really great results for what I personally do. Okay, I don't use Vocaline. I would do that again with flex time and pitch. Okay. And then the Synthesizer V, I use the plugin version instead of the ARA version. There are ways around this, but you have to be willing to be creative. And I think it's a give and a take, a compromise at this point, and we don't know if that'll ever be changed. Okay, so that takes you through the installation and the content management of Logic. This series is going to explore so many different types and angles looking at Logic. And so I hope that you'll come back for the next video. Don't forget, if you become a channel member, you'll get a transcript in bullet form, summary form of everything in this video. And in this case, there's no project to go along with it, but we will be hosting a live stream at some point where you can sign on and ask questions if you need to and get some help. We'll actually, because this is a brand new thing, we'll probably be doing multiples of those live streams depending on interest. And if you're interested in it, then you'll have a way to sign up and express that interest and find a time that hopefully will work. No guarantees, but I hope that this type of series is going to be useful and helpful for you. If you are already a long-time Logic user, perhaps this video wasn't the one for you. However, getting into the next one where we start going through all the settings of Logic, I believe that there's always going to be something that you can learn from a video like that, beginner or not. And then with each video, we'll get more and more hands-on as we do more and more with this. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.